Hey friends, so in this week's video, I wanted to talk to you all about how I create my own study guides for tests. Before I jump into that though, I wanted to throw some tips up onto the screen that I think everyone should do. Always ask the professor in the beginning of the semester if they will provide a study guide for you. They may not know right at the moment, but it's always good to be prepared so that you know what you need to do to prepare for a test. Either way, make sure you stay caught up with readings, homework, and anything else that will make studying easier for you in the end. This way, if a study guide is given to you, you won't have to dig too deep to find the answer, and hopefully you'll remember reading it. And then last thing is, do not be afraid to talk to your professor. They are there to help you and they want to help you. All right, so now on to creating your own study guide. I think it's important to remember that since we are all different types of learners, the way that I do this may not work for you, but you are free to take any of my little tricks that I use to tweak it to work for yourself. So I know this can be a scary task because you might be afraid that you'll forget something, or maybe even that the information that you're using isn't that important. But do not worry, if you have been attending class and keeping up with your work, you should have a pretty clear idea of what the professor expects from you. And if you don't, just ask. So, let's get started. So first things first is to gather all of the sources that you will need to create a study guide. This would be your textbook, your class notes, reading notes, possibly a previous test, and any homework that you have had that would help you out. So this is the tricky part that most people probably have an issue with, and I know it can be a little overwhelming, and that is what you should take out of your notes and what you should put onto your study guide, because you want to make sure that you're not putting every single thing on the study guide. So first thing is to go through your notes and your textbook and highlight what you think is important. Try and think back to class lectures and remember that what the professor really focused on. Look for main concepts, words you'll have to know, and anything you've had a hard time remembering. When looking through the textbook, I always focus on the chapter summary. It shows all the words that were bolded throughout the chapter and will also give you a quick overview of the main and most important concepts that were talked about. Also, on top of looking at your book and your notes, make sure you look at homework or any past tests. Looking at both will give you an understanding of who your professor is and what they think is the most important. I have had many tests where I'm thinking, we didn't even talk about this, but it was on the homework assignment once and the professor thought it was really important, so they had it on the test. So always keep your eyes open and you really need to be prepared for anything. Deciding on the format of your study guide and putting it together. There are so many different formats that you can use. I will just be talking about my favorite. I always liked organizing my study guide by chapter. I always start off by writing down the main keywords from the chapter, and after I define them, underneath that, I will then write down the main concepts with some bullet points, either from my textbook or from my notes, or a combination of both. So one of the main reasons why I do my study guides by chapter is that when I am to the actual studying part, I always liked having my textbook open to that specific chapter so that if something doesn't make sense to me or if I need a little more clarification, I can just quickly look at my textbook and write down a note. So if this is your first attempt at creating a study guide, it can seem like a forever process and really long, but don't worry, it really will pay off in the end. A great little trick that I learned from an online source talked about how you can create a 3-step process of creating your study guide. So what that means is the first go at the study guide would be a very lengthy, detailed study guide with examples galore and anything else that you think would help you. Basically writing out everything word for word. Second, a few days later, after you've looked over it, come back to it and cut it in half, writing out the major concepts and paring down the important details about it. And then last, a few days before the test, cut the study guide down. Again, only writing out the major points. The reason that this is a really helpful way to study is that it forces you to rewrite the information in your own words multiple times, which would hopefully help you remember it. And by the third time that you write it, hopefully you'll be able to not have to look at anything and you'll know it. And it's a great way to study. Now that you have your completed study guide, you're going to want to print it out or staple it, I guess, if you are an awesome person and wrote it all by hand. Now the fun part happens. You have to study it. I have a video talking all about how I study off of a study guide. If you want to watch it, I will link that down below for all of you. If not, that is fine. I hope this all has helped you in some way. Just remember that making a study guide by yourself isn't as scary as it can seem. You have all the information in front of you. It really is just about going through it and deciding what is the most important, and also talking to your professor. Remember that. But thank you all for watching. Good luck on any tests in the future, and please let me know if any of you have any questions. But if not, I will see you all in next week's video.